Jews on the march!
The older I get as a parent, the more I think about this sort of thing. And maybe this movie just came along at the right time. Who are your parents? Did you ever really know them? Maybe you're a parent yourself. How much work goes in? How much time and effort goes into not being seen, truly seen by your kids? As a human being, as vulnerable, as fallible, sometimes misinformed or underinformed, biased, imperfect, sometimes petty or hurtful, damaged, full of rage sometimes, seeking hope desperately, maybe just unimpressed or aloof or detached or apathetic or misanthropic. There's a weird line we don't cross between the generations, a line of appearances. It's invisible when we portray life and its possible meaning for our children, or for any children, where some idea about it, some value, some narrative is upheld at all cost. A pretense, an ideal, which fundamentally separates us from the people who brought us here, who came before, separates us kind of forever. Our parents. And the degree to which we peek around that wall and truly see them can forever change who you are and how you live your life. And that's a lot of what is at stake here in Jim Jarmusch's latest film, Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, which was out on Mubi earlier this year. And I think they helped produce it. And now you can catch it also on Prime. And it's a trio of homecoming stories, each one following adult children visiting their parents and dealing with that unique relationship between those two roles once everyone's moved past them in some way. And now sort of stumbling through and redefining that connection with them somehow. Now, Jarmusch has always had little nuggets about family tucked away in his stories. And he's always been a little concerned with the idea of, fronting, posing, and getting at authenticity as a way of finding some peace in the world, even while being fascinated endlessly with the idea of cool in some of his movies, of the stylish. We see it clearly in Down by Law, where the unapologetically uncool character, but the most honest, played by Roberto Benigni, finds a place to settle in and finally be at home, despite being in a new land, where the other two, the natives, played by Tom Waits and John Lurie, continue down that road as immature, as inscrutable, and as alone as ever in the end. Here in Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, Tom Waits crops up again. In a way, he's kind of the same guy, a little more reflective and experienced, a lot older, and he found some sort of love for a time, but then lost it after having 2 kids. And we meet him now alone and in some nearly mythical, removed place where a nearly mythical kind of character, a parent, could exist. It's a place, kind of in our brains as adult children, really, that you can only visit after putting yourself in a certain frame of mind first, that you can never go home to. Maybe because that person was never really there. They have to rehearse a bit too, for you. Get back into character. And we see Tom Waits doing just that as Adam Driver and Mayim Bialik make the perilous approach to visit their dad. Now, all the approaches in this movie, the visits the adult kids make in each of these 3 vignettes are a bit of a hero's journey in and of themselves, in that there's a threshold that they each cross before they get there. And, I won't get all heady about that stuff, but it's a nice storytelling technique from Jim Jarmusch that helps set up the course of these visits, and by the end helps us feel as viewers like we've been somewhere special ourselves, and maybe come back with something for our trouble. And the first pair arrive, and old dad is awkward, humble, loving, slightly distant, a bit ashamed. He's clearly borrowed money in the past. He's clearly embarrassed them in the past, notably at their mother's funeral, an event everyone takes pains not to bring up too much. But there's love here, we think. We're going home with these adult children, and we're at arm's length from dad, but we're not, meant to stay that way. Just as in life, we're not meant to stay children, but to grow up and act like somebody who's grown up. And so here we start with the kids being concerned, if maybe a bit circumspect about this man who's been their dad. But now they've adopted an adult persona all their own and need to be that, desperately need to be that, and be treated in accordance with that, while still needing their dad to remain the same. And that imbalance is somewhat unsustainable. That imbalance runs through all the stories here. And here in this first one, we go from a suspicion that the dad is a fake, and we clearly see him hiding things, clearly orchestrating the attention and conversations away from maybe outright lies that he's told. And we feel betrayed as children at first. But then Jarmusch goes us one better, and we realize, oh, what did you expect? We need that parental pretense. We've always gotten pretense, after all, from these people we call our parents. It's a job skill of theirs in a way, starting with the Easter Bunny and on up from there. The pretense of how to act, how to live, what a good person is, what a bad one is. The lessons all scrubbed down and cast in improbable black and white, with no room for much else. But then we grow up and realize life is gray. And finally, we start to forgive this old man. Because, he's lied about money, about repairs for his house, about heating bills and needing food. But after a time with these characters, we realize, they need him for that. They need a parent to remain frozen in time. The son especially needs to feel like he's surpassed him and has become a good man. And he proves it to himself by making sure he's stepping up. It seems like the dad was maybe conning him out of money and then squandering it on maintaining some lifestyle. But the numbers don't add up. I think he has all the money he needs, but he gives his son the illusion that he needs and acts like he's poor. The amount we overhear that the son has given him in the past would not really account for this classic car that he drives, for instance, the designer couch that he hides, the restaurants that he's become accustomed to. He's had his own money, I think, all along. He's providing a fiction, maybe like he always has, as good old dad, because Adam Driver's character still needs him to. And that's maybe why dad has, not really asked the daughter for money. She actually is the only grown-up here and doesn't need as much make-believe as her brother. I love the approach to this house, to this place that the kids make in this first vignette. The washed-out road, the talk of common things, practical things like cars and heating fuel and all the measures of what responsible grown-ups focus on, and how it all evaporates when they leave. And he's on the phone in his real clothes, talking to someone about, meeting down at the club and ordering some steaks and looking good in his $40,000 BMW. Or not, maybe he did take his kids for a ride. We don't really get the answer. But don't discount that it may have been for the same reason. Maybe he is going to hell, but for all the right reasons. Then the film takes us out through the ether, and I love this green and pinkish, almost Christmassy colored lights that connect one visit into the next, to another homecoming, another approach, as two sisters visit their mother, Charlotte Rampling, the actress playing the mother. Equally unknowable here. Maybe more unknowable behind her staid and proper house rules, as if her daughters could never grow up enough for her liking. And Cate Blanchett, the one who has clearly modeled herself on Mom the most, but perhaps missed the mark the most, undergoes a sort of supernatural vehicular breakdown on the way, completely unexplained by the film, and passes like a mist across a drawbridge to finally deliver her at Mom's castle door, their novelist mother's luxury home in Dublin. Now, Sister Lilith transforms as well along the journey, casting her partner as an Uber driver rather than confound things with the truth of their relationship. The sisters Lilith and Timothea, names pretty well fitting the characters here, with Blanchett's Timothea seeming more reserved and self-effacing against Vicky Creep's Lilith, more her own person living defiantly, though equally deferential to Mom. Lilith, may be gay, we get the sense, but provides just enough pretense to allow Mom not to call it out. And this too-perfect tea-time visit still breathes with life as we feel the years of submission and boundaries in this family holding strong. I have to admit, for me, it was the least compelling of the triptych's installments, but it might hold some depths that maybe escaped me as an old male viewer. It's interesting, though, as here in the second installment, we see the hand of the director at work. He gives these characters ideas and even lines of dialogue, whole exchanges sometimes, to put their own spin on from the first story, involving purity and water and proper etiquette and toasting and our familial need to blend traditions with our family history, just enough to allow the family to survive some change, though very slow change seems preferred. And we begin to also feel a simmering question now in the film, also present in adult children as they more and more become like their parents, or more and more resist that urge. What is it all about? Why do we keep doing this over and over? Is the story of our lives something that happened before we had kids? Does it include that? Or does it pause and come back online when they're grown? Once offered, Jarmusch kind of heads right for the mother lode of existential movie making. It's in the third and final vignette, Brother-Sister, where we meet fraternal twins Sky and Billy, who are, again, on a journey to their parents' home. But the parents this time have passed away. They reunite to have a last look at their place in Paris, where the expats were living a life centered on love and music and art, especially. You could say the parents in the other two stories had increasing artistic concerns as the movie goes on. Tom Waits with his books and ideas, but still somehow trapped by his hollow sense of style for its own sake. Then we get the novelist Mom churning out supposed literature, but somehow devoid of passion for it. Even the titles are pretentious and unapproachable. And then there's these parents, living in a place fully identified with art, with music, with passion. These humanists who've created very sensitive humanist kids, concerned more than anyone in the film with the value and meaning of human life. But the remains of these parents' lives, once packed into a cold storage compartment that's clearly never going to be reopened, never going to be assessed, except this one time by the son who packed it all up after they died, sitting in front of us now, begging the question, what does it all add up to? And there is a final answer in this film. Where have we seen this before? Jim Jarmusch is a movie nut. He knows where this comes from. This is just the ending of Citizen Kane, maybe on a mild sedative. This image pared down for a low budget, a dime store version of an emptied Xanadu was still no less powerful. What does it all add up to? The loot of our lives once collected. It adds up to an experience of a life or lives lived that can't be expressed through mere objects. These curiosities, the furniture and the records and the paintings and all the rest, because they signify something only felt from within that life as it happened. There's no rosebud here. Or more to the point maybe, it's all rosebud. The whole pile is rosebud. And all of us, will have that pile in the end. It will have, different lampshades and couches, and we might collect different records or artists, but when you pile it all together, it'll look a whole lot like this pile. We recognize it immediately already in the film. Its specificity to these characters, two of which we'll never meet, somehow makes it more universal. The film has been called inscrutable. Some critics have called this film inconsequential in Jim Jarmusch's catalog, but I think that's, the point, because of all the adult children characters, it's only these two at the end who feel a real connection to their parents, who carry something of them away with them inside. And they do this through art, through music, not artifacts, not style, except maybe mom's glasses that the daughter takes. Interesting that she takes something her mom saw her life through the experience of the arts. The final song they share with their now absent parents is on an 8-track cassette, as if to make the point that style and artifact doesn't matter. It's the feeling. They have known someone through a shared experience, only possible through shared art, through music here, and just maybe through a film. Maybe this film. They mourn in a way the other two families likely will not, because of that one thing. And I would not be so quick to label that inconsequential. In this simple visit to a storage unit on the way back to the airport, as we recognize all our stuff, we're shaken. On the way back to our own collection that maybe has meaning only to us and only ever will, destined for the pile, and an unpaid storage container rental for our kids. The trail we leave will just be stuff. Maybe for the fire, maybe in the secondhand store with our stories all scrubbed clean from them. And so Jarmusch is to be commended, I think, for making this film, telling a story that can never be anything but this subtle. It would be saccharine to make it anything more. It would be false. But in presenting it, he maybe recommends us to these characters, mostly to Sky and Billy, and then back to some of his others from the past. So who are our parents? Are they a character who came into being only for our sake? One they could never stop playing, or just forgot how to? Someone torn from the pages of a book, written in our imaginations, of what a good person is? Are they still there when we move on? Do they still exist when we look away? Or maybe a parent is just a set of ideas we project onto somebody who remains largely, maybe blissfully, unaware. Maybe it's something being projected onto us as we're unaware. What good comes from sifting through those mountains of their detritus and artifacts then, their rosebuds? Who will our artifacts matter to? Jarmusch says, well, maybe only to you. But sometimes, if you're lucky, even for just a short time, if you do something right, maybe to one or two others. So he looks beyond style here in this film and the endless platitudes of life and asks us to try to just be that one other person for somebody for a little while you can. I liked this movie. Thanks to our members scrolling now on the screen. Subscribe if you would. I would love that. And I'll see you soon.